We're excited here on Maine Life to kick off a new series, Maine Authors' Lives and Work, with Maine native and Pulitzer Prize winning author Elizabeth Strout. So happy to have you here.
Nice to be here.
We are in
Thank you.
the Fort Andros Mill in Brunswick. Beautiful view.
Gorgeous.
And it's the new Rough and Tumble headquarters. You can smell the leather and the bags behind us. Do a little shopping after the interview. Elizabeth, I can call you Liz.
Yeah.
You left Maine many years ago, and your experiences living here really are influential in a lot of your writings.
Right.
Before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about when you left. You were at Bates, graduated,
Right.
and decided to branch out.
Well, I went to Bates, and then I was always writing, and so I kept writing and writing, but nobody was interested, and so then I went to England only because I didn't speak any other language. So I went to England for a year, and I worked in a pub, and I was writing and writing, and still nobody cared. So then I finally decided to go to law school. And I applied to the University of Maine Law School, and they did not let me in. So at that point, Syracuse University let me in. And that was really when I left Maine to go to Syracuse University College of Law, met my first husband there, and moved to New York City.
What do you think about Maine and growing up in a small town? What perspective does that give you now in life, travels overseas, living in New York?
Right. I think that it was very, very good for me as a writer because I spent a lot of time alone. And there was an isolation in my childhood, and so I spent a great deal of time alone in the woods playing quite happily, and that was the world that I knew from a very, very young age. And so the physical beauty of this state, you know, was just immediately part of who I was and who I am, and so that was enormously helpful.
So you chose to raise your daughter
Yeah.
in New York City.
Yes.
She is my age, so I'm fascinated to know a little bit about how she feels about Maine coming back.
She was just up here recently, and she loves Maine, but she's very much a New Yorker. This is a child that was raised in New York City. She was raised on the subway. She took the subways to school. You know, the whole thing. It was just an entirely different way of living, and I'm very happy that she was raised in New York. I thought it was a good place for her. So she's a New Yorker through and through. And she loves Maine, and she's interested in it, and she understands that it's part of her heritage.
In an interview that you might not remember, in 1999, of course, that was your first novel. It was a huge success.
Yeah.
And the interviewer said, you know, you write a lot about ordinary people.
Oh, right.
Because you're ordinary.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I'm watching this interview, getting so excited for you. It was almost like I'm watching a movie, because 10 years later, she doesn't know that she's about to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Right.
So do you still feel ordinary?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How did that award change your career, your life, your perspective?
Honestly, the Pulitzer just, you know, I was older when I got it, and I think that helps, because if I'd been young, it might have been a different story, but I don't know. But so the main thing it did was brought me new readers. It brought me a lot more readers. And so my sense of responsibility rose.
What does your Maine life look like?
My Maine life looks like it's a wonderful place for me to work, because I have a studio here that's separate from where we live, which I've never had before. And that's been really wonderful. And it's a small town, and, you know, friendly people. And so it's great.
How do you get inspired to write more? What inspires you?
What's been interesting for me is every single time that I have started to end a book, something has risen in a little tiny dot on the horizon and come closer to me as I've been finishing a book, so that I end up knowing, okay, this is what I'll be working on now. It's so far that's happened. It's amazing.